Awesome. Looks like we have our speaker up and a good attendance right off the bat, so let's kick it off. Today I'm excited to host the prop-based team. The prop-based team is, I believe, the first real-world asset project on Aptos. Real-world assets, as we'll go into discussion, is a trending topic, as I think this is probably going to be the next wave of adoption and liquidity that comes into the crypto space. So yeah, really excited to hop into this. And without further ado, pass it over to the prop base team. Yeah, please give us a brief intro and tell us more about your project.
Hey, can you hear me there?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, great, great. Um, well, first of all, I mean, it's exciting to be here, and together, I guess, with the Pontem team, also talking to a lot of Aptos, aficionados. So, yeah, quite great. So I'm Kevin Goos. I'm the founder and CEO of Propbase. Real world tokenization has been the trend really for the last, I'd say 6 to 8 months, and it's kind of nice to see the trend kind of behind us. So we're focusing on tokenizing real estate assets in particular. And yeah, I'd say that going forward and seeing the next bull trend coming through, we're going to see a lot of tokenization coming on board, not only in real estate but also equities, bonds, T-bills, luxury goods, really everywhere. So it's just a value added play for physical assets to become tokenized. The benefits of blockchain technology really add a next level of transferability, transparency, data recording associated with the asset. So there's efficiencies just across the board.
Nice. Let's take a high level overview of what RWA real world assets are. So, it can be a little bit intuitive, but for folks that are not familiar with the yeah, with the trend or this vertical, what are, from your perspective, what are RWAs?
Yeah, so real world asset tokenization is simply creating a representation of the physical asset on chain. So to make it as simple as possible, we're bringing real world assets such as, it could be a hotel, could be luxury car, could be shares within stocks, and we're bringing them on chain, and the representation of that asset on chain can then even be displayed, through smart contract interaction. So this could be through representation of a token. To give you kind of a high level overview for Propbase, so we're a real estate tokenization platform. Users can come onto our platform. They can invest as little as $100. They can buy a fraction of a property, and they can have the same benefits as if though owning the entire property, such as rental yield or asset appreciation. And if they so choose, they can sell on our P2P marketplace to another prop based user anytime from anywhere, and at the price of their choosing. So that kind of sounds simple, but for real estate, specifically real estate investment, it it solves almost all the main pain points facing a traditional asset class like real estate investment. So the biggest pain point that we solve specifically by Propbase is, it's traditionally been a high barrier to entry. We all know that if you wanted to invest in property, it was a time consuming process. It required a lot of capital. But now, through fractional ownership and tokenization, it becomes less of a barrier to entry, and it becomes more accessible to a much larger total addressable market size. Another big pain point that traditional real estate investment has faced for, I guess you could say, decades is fees, right? So, it's often quite costly to buy and transact real estate. When you look at traditional brokerage fees, escrow fees, everything, you're looking at maybe 8 up to 10% of the total property value, which is insane. And the third really biggest pain point is the liquidity. So when people traditionally invest in real estate assets, they tend to hold them for 7 or 10 years, wait for the asset to appreciate. Because there's such high transaction fees, you have to wait a significant period of time. But now, through platforms like Propbase and other RWA platforms around the world, it's now accessible to invest in real estate with a lower barrier to entry, such as $1,000, $100. You can come onto the platform um, within 5 minutes, select a property that you'd like to purchase, buy a fraction of the property. The next day, if you'd like to sell that asset, you can do so. So that is going to be the trend kind of going forward. And I think consumers all around the world, specifically in newer markets, Propbase is has an administrative center in Southeast Asia, and so we focus and target a very large population, which is Southeast Asia is about 650 million people. It has the highest crypto adoption of anywhere in the world. So 2x the global average. You have countries like Vietnam where, it's 20% market penetration, meaning 20% of the entire population has interacted, created a wallet, bought or sold cryptocurrency. Thailand, 15%, Singapore. So it's really becoming a new value proposition where people who thought traditional real estate investment or owning a property was out of reach, and it is today, even in sophisticated markets like Europe or the United States. And so, but now it's becoming more accessible, and really it has to do with the underlying technology, the transferability, and the immutability really of a ledger that can be verified. So in our case specifically, and in a lot of cases is anyone can go in and they can look and see how many wallets own each property token. They can see how many tokens of that specific asset are in the wallet. So you have then you have the history of the entire asset since its conception, since it's been brought on chain. So this is kind of inherently good for, I guess, everyone. You don't have the same benefits like with blockchain, such as anonymity, but you really have the benefits of the technology. And so this is really where the benefits outweigh any sort of the risks. And that's why we're seeing big brands, big headline numbers really come on and say, hey, tokenization is going to be the next wave. It could be even its own segment within, the cryptocurrency and blockchain communities. And yeah, I think that, it's quite an exciting space right now. And there's, a lot of, I'll also say that there's a lot of great platforms around the world. Real world asset tokenization kind of brings a little bit of a next level caliber teams, professionals to really enter into the Web3 space, bridge the gap, and onboard what was considered to be very traditional assets into Web3, bring it on chain, and do so in obviously a compliant and secure manner.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm really hopeful for real world assets as the next wave. Crypto itself is almost like a sandbox, right? Like all these governance tokens and crypto assets hold no intrinsic value other than, people's beliefs in it. Like Bitcoin, arguably, is a belief system that people maintain, and then they exchange their electricity for mining them and trading it, and I guess somewhat psychological scarcity of 21 million, even though that could also be hard work. And now we're starting to bring on board assets that have physical value, as you're saying, real estate. I think the first example of this was stable coins with USDC, USDT.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's awesome to see folks like yourself starting to bring this on, and all the benefits you mentioned is exactly why we're here, right? To have access to global markets, allowing folks all over the world, to not be locked out of financial institutions, lowering those barriers to entry, lowering fees. But t tell us more about this. Kind of using the stablecoin example. How do I go about creating a real world asset? Like how if I have a house, how do I tokenize it? And then once I tokenize it, how can I trust that that house is there, right? Like there's as an example, there's questions around tethers, reserves, and yeah, how does it all work, and how can people trust it?
Yeah, yeah, I get the question quite a bit. Um, so with tokenizing real world assets, first of all, like I mean, specifically from a front end perspective. So, but I'll kind of talk with you a little bit about the flow of bringing an asset on chain, which is it's quite a bit of work, but it is there's so first Propbase specifically maybe is a little bit unique than maybe a platform in the United States. We specifically work with qualified real estate property developers. So these are often property developers who are building commercial or residential assets, condos, large housing developments, hotels, resorts. They're, they have a track record of 25 years. In some cases, where they're often publicly traded. So there's first a level of compliance. So specifically, not anyone can just go on and list a property on Propbase. It has to be done by specifically our team. We engage with real estate developers. We run them through the onboarding process, to be honest with you. So we work with their legal teams. We look at the compliance perspective. We look at the underlying asset. We qualify the asset not only in terms of third-party due diligence, such as like a reputable auditing firm, but we also look at the asset to say, hey, look, is it a good asset? Is it adequately priced? Is it appraised at the correct price? We also invest in the properties that we're looking to tokenize. So, we come at it from, a user perspective, right? An investor perspective. Uh, Once the asset is placed, on chain, specifically, there's a separate legal entity. In our case, it's a SPV, so a compartment within an SPV, and the underlying title, deed, transfer, all of the supporting documentation, even the articles associated with the underlying asset, the terms, property management contract, so on and so forth. They're all placed in a specific vehicle, right? So never under any circumstance can the asset be taken out of that vehicle. It's fairly transparent. You have not only prop based, but you have third party representation, third party auditors. You also have a transparent securitization vehicle. So so that's kind of the beginning of the process. Then what's really cool is from a technology perspective, what Propbase has done, which is quite unique, specifically for us, is all these documents are also securely stored on IPFS with the hash related to the documents directly tied into the smart contract of which the token is generated. And then the tokens that are generated in that specific smart contract and are distributed to investors um, represent the underlying asset or the underlying shares within the SPV. So that's in a nutshell kind of how you do it. We have a crowdfunding tokenization module, which is what we're launching now. So it goes through a crowdfunding process. Once we reach a soft cap, the property is considered to then be processed on chain. Once the hard cap is reached, you cannot exceed the hard cap. So then it takes almost maybe between I think 7 to 10 days for us to complete all of the due diligence or to complete all of the on-chain process, distribute tokens to the individual investors, and then they would have then custody over those tokens representing that underlying asset. And it's not like per se if you lose your tokens, you lost your property. It doesn't necessarily work like that. So as mentioned, there's the benefits of the underlying technology, but every user who comes onto our platform, they go through a KYC process. We take their information, they get qualified, and they can choose to have custody. They can choose to integrate with one of our third-party platforms, which is Fireblocks. It's really up to them, but we make it as secure as possible for people who potentially just want to invest in real estate through a fraction of ownership and maybe diversify their portfolio over maybe 5, 10 assets, and not have to worry about losing their asset or in any way getting hacked. So that's another restriction that we kind of put into place where users can really um, sell to other whitelisted wallets. Even if we list on a third-party exchange, an asset-backed securities exchange, then we would have those wallets directly whitelisted and tied to the actual token contract.
That makes sense. So, as I understand, it's like putting a wrapper, kind of like a blockchain wrapper, on the existing products. Like some of these, the whole process for tokenizing, or the whole process for having financial instruments from real estate, for example, already exists, and now you're adding on a wrapper for blockchain so that it adds more liquidity. You can trade with lower fees, etc. Is that
Yeah,
like a good
correct.
summary?
And it's been around. I mean, so like tokenization. Let's say the tokenization of real estate has been around for a while, right? So, but now as it's becoming mainstream, it's practically applied. There's compliant jurisdictions. It's tried and tested model. So token is just a new, let's say, vehicle of which a blockchain-based token is a new vehicle of which the asset is represented in. But I mean, the industry has been around for a long time, such as notes or other forms. But yeah, I mean, and so I think that's kind of where the industry's heading. I think there's going to be a big amount of momentum going forward, specifically over the next 2 to 3 years. And for platforms like Propbase, it's directly in our interest to bring as many assets on chain, as fast as possible. So we're entering into this rush because in doing so, it's better for the users. They're able to get a bigger diversification of assets that they can invest in. For the platform like Propbase, it's quite profitable bringing assets on chain, so there's direct revenue tied to it. And I think that inherently, you know, digitalizing real world representation of physical assets, doing so in a compliant and transparent manner is inherently good not only for the country of which the asset's located, it's good for property developers, it's good for infrastructure. If we can get more people to invest in real estate, it is the most proven asset class, for I think maybe Bitcoin is the only other one, but if you took a property which was valued at X amount 80 years ago, and you took the value of that property now, I mean, the offset on inflation is huge, right? So that property 80 years ago could have been worth a few $1,000s, and now if it's in California or wherever, it's probably a few $1 million, right? So getting real, I guess, as many participants to invest in real estate is kind of just an inherently good thing. And so that's what our team loves. I mean, we that's what we're passionate about. That's what kind of makes us work extra hard, extra hours, everything, is that we genuinely feel we're doing a good thing. It's good for people. It's good for middle tier investors, even lower tier investors. It's great for accredited investors. And traditionally, specifically with Propbase, the types of assets we've partnered with are reserved for almost entirely small funds, hedge funds, high net wealth individuals, and these are the best assets. right? So in our case, we signed an asset tokenization partnership with a large real estate developer, hotel and resort development managed by Wyndham, one of the largest hotel brands in the world. And these traditional asset investment vehicles were reserved for very rich individuals, but now they can become accessible to people with lower barrier to entry, right? A few $1,000s, a few $100s, going so on and so forth. And these are the assets that generally perform the best, right? So they have qualified yields. These yields are generally accountable. You have reputable third parties, like what I mentioned. You have, in our case, Wyndham, but if it was an office building, maybe you'd have something like CBRE, or you'd have Colliers, or you'd have Jones Lang LaSalle. So you have like these professional management entities that are reputable, they're global, they're brand names, and now people can kind of get access into this asset class, which has never really been seen before. So yeah, I mean, it's quite exciting.
Yeah, it seems like the payment rails and process is streamlined through this so that folks can more easily get exposure to this asset class. Are there any limits to I guess foreign investors? Like if you're tokenizing assets in Southeast Asia, can someone from, let's say, France or Canada come and just invest?
Oh yeah, I mean, another level to this business is compliance, right? So you have to be compliant. You have to have the applicable licenses. For us specifically, I guess that's unique from platform to platform, but for us specifically, we're able to solicit, issue, and distribute tokens within 33 jurisdictions, 27 of which are actually European based, and France is one of them that you mentioned that. Um, and then 6 countries within Southeast Asia. But unfortunately, Americans cannot really participate. It is on our roadmap in 2025 to have a representative office within the United States, but that's kind of different. But right now, uh, in terms of soliciting and offering asset-backed tokens, which are technically security tokens, there's just a level of compliance, and so that's something that we, first looked at even really before building a, next gen kind of tokenization platform like Propbase. And so, yeah, I think so you can't hit all the countries. I mean, there are obviously countries that are not applicable really for any platforms, whether there be and these are countries that are tied up with sanctions, and so obviously those countries are not applicable. Plus, for us, I mean, we kind of want to keep it tight a little bit, and for the first year or two, just because I mean, if you're investing and you're from France and you're investing in an asset in Thailand and has a good yield, you want to make sure that other jurisdictions are also reputable as well. But and to keep kind of a first in class. So Propbase, our objective is really to become the largest real estate tokenization platform in Southeast Asia. It's very specific. We're a vertical, so we're only focusing on real estate development projects from reputable third party or from reputable property developers, focused in a geographical region because this is a region that we know, and and making sure that we can get the accessibility, the liquidity, and fortunately in Thailand, about half the properties are sold to Europeans, and there's a few good benefits is or Europeans or Australians or even Americans, right, or Canadians, but there's a few benefits. So Thailand, recently announced a $1 billion tax break for all investment tokens. They announced it not recently, I'd say back in March. Thailand has a very pro crypto prime minister who is also a real estate developer and kind of ran and was elected prime minister recently, just a few months ago, down and kind of ran off the campaign to do a nationwide airdrop in to about 55 million people of $300 each. So Thailand kind of, always, surprises and kind of tries to take a leap forward in terms of innovation. And I think that goes for a lot of regions in Southeast Asia is there's a progressive regulatory framework, there's a progressive stance towards blockchain innovation, towards cryptocurrency. It kind of leapfrogs. So Southeast Asia kind of takes what works in the United States, what works in Europe, then they implement it in their own way here, and then it kind of leapfrogs and molds into its own device. And so I was actually at Token 2049, and there was a Thai delegation down there, and they're actually just looking for a technical solution like a layer one to 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 you know you know, technically distribute an airdrop to a large population, and so that was quite exciting. So and they will do it, right? So they're very aggressive on it. And then other regions or other countries in the region, Vietnam's very progressive towards blockchain cryptocurrency. Singapore has pretty much all the regulation that you'd want to see in place. They have consumer protection. Malaysia is fastly onboarding as well. So yeah, I think that's kind of the way. And so maybe in this next bull run, you're going to see like you know um, really kind of transparent businesses, projects, ones that are compliant. I mean, this is what like the next level of investors kind of want to see. And so, that's kind of where when you tokenize real world assets, that is kind of like the first, let's say, best practices or first principles. And so we try and do that, like everything from Propbase's tokenomics to our native utility token to our team, everything we try and do it first in class, um, transparency, across the board as much as we can, and even alluding to things like next steps and what we plan to do. I know that I'm planning now for to do just we do tons of AMAs and everything, but we always like to update our community just on where we're at in our product development process, what our plans are for the next near term. So we issued out like a H2 near term roadmap a few months ago, and so now we're coming through with our 2024 roadmap. So we'll probably be talking about that here in the next 2 weeks. And then we'll issue out kind of like a 90-day kind of roadmap going forward. We kind of do it always every like 90 days, just to kind of give a level of comfort, level of transparency that people know that we're are what we're and what we say we're going to do, then we always try and stick to it, give or take a week or whatever. And so that's kind of makes us happy as a team, makes us feel good, and really kind of sets us to the next level. And I think it also brings really good community members, right? So Propbase has been fortunate enough to build a very, very strong community of people who are kind of next level into crypto, right? So they like things like technology. They're into how a layer one solution is solving problems. And we always love talking about Aptos too, because we've as builders on Aptos, we've had quite a pleasant experience in terms of really not only getting support directly from their core team when need be, but also just documentation, the nature of which to submit and deploy contracts, the speed of the network. It's just, for us, it's been a pleasant experience so far.
Yeah, that makes sense, and definitely plus one on the support from Aptos, and using this as a layer one for these types of use cases. Um, so we've gone through a lot of the benefits, and definitely agree that there's a lot of benefits to this, and I'm excited to see more and more real world assets start to come on board. That's gonna pair liquidity against crypto. It's definitely gonna grow the ecosystem. Just to kind of balance out the conversation too, I want to go into some of the risks that come with this. So if I'm a French real estate investor and I want to invest in the Thailand real estate market, and I purchase one of these, how do I make sure that, for example, the plumbing works, or that the asset that I'm investing into is well taken care of or custodied
Yeah,
safely.
yeah, great.
Or
Yeah,
yeah, or another example might be like if my identity is stolen, how do I make sure that someone doesn't come and take my real estate?
yeah, correct. Yeah, correct. Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, my background is prop tech through and through. So I've been building, technical platforms, very large technical platforms before Propbase for about maybe 10, 15 years. So we've we have a very strong knowledge of the technology platforms that are needed around the real estate ecosystem, as well as types of real estate, right? So in our case, the when we first started out, the whole objective was how can we reduce the liability with the underlying physical asset. So another great point to mention is just like previous liens on property, property boundaries, everything associated with that. So that's where we kind of made a decision to focus on commercial real estate. So PropBase in particular, and this is unique to us, we we focus on larger asset classes. So and these larger asset classes need to have reputable third party property management. So it's different from residential real estate. So residential real estate, you could create a DAO, Wyoming-based DAO LLC. You could have 50 participants. They could vote over who the renter is. They could vote over who's going to fix the aircon. But for myself and for our team, we said we kind of wanted to go a different direction. We wanted to go into something bigger, and just because we see an opportunity specifically in our region, and this is unique to us. So for us, how are we taking the liability of the underlying asset out of the equation or reducing any sort of liability? One is track records of real estate developers. Number two is third-party property management. So individual investors, token holders, they don't need to worry about things like property maintenance or finding a tenant or mowing lawns or fixing air cons. That's all handled by third-party property management. So in our case, it's Wyndham, right? So I know that Wyndham knows how to run hotels much better than myself or really any investor could do. And so they're going to be the people who make a lot of the decisions associated with the underlying asset, with the expectation that it's always in the investor's interest to generate equitable and highly sustainable returns. And so, and as they're the largest hotel brand in the world, that gives us specifically and investors a level of confidence, simply because you just wouldn't tarnish your name or your brand over, one asset located in one region, one and Wyndham has a lot of representation around here. So that's our focus specifically. Now, if it was a commercial asset, we'd be looking at who was the specifically the property management with that asset, right? So if it was CBRE, which is a multi-billion-dollar commercial real estate entity, Colliers, same, Jones Lang LaSalle, same. So so that's kind of our focus. Now, if it was residential properties, yeah, you have to deal with all of those things, and to be honest with you, that's less exciting. I don't think myself or Jesse or Hudson want to be fixing air cons. Specifically in our first asset tokenization project, renovations are built into the actual articles. So for 10 years, there is no sort of involvement from individual token holders associated with the physical asset. So that's key for us. In terms of then security, right? Holding your tokens. What happens if I lost my tokens? For us, that's not necessarily a I mean, it's a large focus of us, but what we've done, just because of we don't have anonymity, we put in restrictions based on who can interact with the actual token. So whitelisting wallets, KYC processes, everything we do to really mitigate the risk of someone losing their keys, even ourselves putting through multi-sig wallet, which we're now in conversations with third-party providers to really make sure that these things don't happen. And then even into the actual specific token design, there is specifically a way for us to claw back any sort of inherent risk. So if that does happen, our objective is to be able to work that back and then be able to redeem those tokens, mint those tokens, and burn the ones that were lost.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, it makes sense like focusing on commercial, through kind of like I guess economies of scale minimizes the risk of individual properties, as I'm understanding.
Yeah,
Um,
and prop based, another thing is relationships, right? So I, specifically just because of my background, our team's background, we've been in the region for a long time. We have existing relationships with a lot of real estate developers, and they're big. They've got 50, 100 projects. They're top 10, top 20, in a country, few $1 billion in assets, right? So I think it's also relationships. If Propbase was to go to do a tokenize a property in another region or in South America, I personally we wouldn't have that confidence, right? So, and another thing that we like Southeast Asia is the property price versus the returns and the asset appreciation is quite attractive, right? So if you have countries like in Germany, I was talking to a few of my friends who are investing in tokenized real estate in the United States, and they asked me about, well, what about depreciation, Kevin? And I said, oh, yeah, I'm not. We don't have depreciation over here yet. So maybe in 2030 we'll have a depreciation, but mostly you have, urbanization really coming through. So Bangkok is, it's a very first world city. It has some of the best real estate developments in the region. You have Singapore, you have Ho Chi Minh, you have a lot of really, urbanized, first world cities. And then, there's a lot of migration to come and create increased demand. And so we've seen this, over the last 12 years. I think Thailand specifically has an annual asset appreciation of about 5.5%. And then, rental returns vary depending on the underlying asset. But yeah, so.
yeah, that makes sense. How does governance work on the ownership of these? Like as a fractional owner, do you have any governance rights on what gets done with the properties, for example?
Yeah, so those are all laid out in long term. So prior to the asset becoming tokenized, individuals should, when they're making their investment decision, they would read the articles within the specific contracts, and a lot of it would be laid out, right? It's like there is a hotel. This is a management company for 25 years. This is the expected return. This is the breakdown of quarterly reports associated with the returns. This is the fees. This is the fees after 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, so on and so forth. So we're a individual token holder, specifically in these larger assets, they don't have to necessarily participate. Now, if there was a offer to, let's say, the appreciation reached 100%, right, and the asset was worth 10 million, and all of a sudden now was, 5 years later now worth 20 million, that would be then potentially a governance decision to potentially keep it off chain or to do just a major exit event.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, so let's transition a little bit into prop base and the platform that you're building. So uh, tell me more about how, for example, the prop token plays into this, the utility of it, and yeah, how can others, use your platform to get exposure or
Cool.
access this?
Yeah, cool. Yeah. I mean, I love talking about it. So we have a native utility token as our platform token. It's called Props. Um, and we just ran through 5 IDOs. I don't know if we ran through five of it. We listed on MEXC. We're on um, Pancake Swap, listing on you guys as well here shortly, and have a few more exchange conversations here in the upcoming weeks. So we have a native utility token. It serves as a uniform method for all smart contract interaction on the platform. It serves as a uniform method for all settlement of property transaction fees, as well as access to new listings on the platform. So those are the three core utility feature sets. And as we look into our to go into the actual product, so we have two separate products. We have specifically a staking app, which is designed to build out our token economy. This is actually just a way for investors and props to really have kind of a dashboard completely separate from our tokenization module, and users can go in, they can connect their wallet, they can securely stake tokens, they can see metrics associated with circulating supply, they can see things like where we're listed, kind of like Propbase's own coin market cap, I guess you could say. So this is a separate app that we started on deployment about 4 weeks ago, actually, maybe 6 weeks ago, as after the designs. And we did this just because we want to provide a lot of stability. Everyone loves staking, so we wanted to provide that opportunity. And then later we'll begin to tie that into actual property ownership. Our second and main core product, which we've been working on for a very long time, and we just finished version one of about 4 weeks ago, is our real estate tokenization platform. So this is directly where users will invest in property. You sign up, you go through a KYC process. We have a marketplace. It runs through a crowdfunding offering process. There's access to it. So, users who are staking props, they can get access to whitelist spots for our first tokenization offering. And then we run the sellout period. Our next build out, starting in January 2021, is our secondary marketplace. So this is the secondary market liquidity. So we're tokenizing our first asset around February, mid to late February, and we'll be stress testing it probably from January to Feb. We've run through and have booked all of our CertiK audits, and our props token came through with, kind of proud to say, and I know that we don't highlight it as much, but CertiK came back to us and said that we have one of the highest security scores for any token they've done in a while that is pre-launch. This is before we are listed, and we're in the top 10% of all CertiK audits done by all the projects they've done in the history that they've been around. So that was a pretty good achievement for our team. There was a lot of work that was put into that, and making sure that props is built for the long term. So like our business model, when we think about our business model and we tune it back, we think about, okay, we have a mission. We want to become the largest real estate tokenization platform in Southeast Asia. And we work back and figure out where do we need to be in year one, year two, year three. So one of the strongest things we wanted to do was build a foundation, and having a high CertiK score for our native utility token is key. So when users come in, they invest, they do so in a stable asset. As mentioned, all the fees are paid in props. Yield distribution is separate. It can be props or a stable asset, but it's separate from the actual underlying token ownership. So users can, take that off platform. They can, put it in their wallet. They can, buy other cryptocurrencies that they'd want to do with the yield generated from it. And yeah, we like that, because that provides, liquidity for people, right? So it's just kind of exactly the way you'd look at rental yield being distributed on a monthly basis, except for our intervals are much quicker. So that's really how when we looked at, really, we want to make real estate ownership, real estate investment, the same way it's traditionally been, but just in smaller intervals. And so every time we make a decision, whether it's from a product design perspective or from a UI UX perspective or from a distribution perspective, we always keep those core principles in mind. And so that's really what creates the value proposition, because real estate in and of itself is a good investment. And so how can we break that down into smaller, lower barrier to entry, smaller investment sizes through fractional ownership and yet remain at the same, right? So, and as we roll into, further modules, then we're looking at obviously then, more complex modules based around things like a little bit of leverage, mortgage, home ownership, those type of things. But those are much further down the road for us. Right now, we're just looking at really Marketplace 1, which is our initial crowdfunding tokenization marketplace, Marketplace 2, which is a secondary market trading, and building out, a separate app, which is our staking app, which really is able for anyone who wants to come in and own props. They can just have this dashboard where they can kind of see the entire token economy, and for us, it's very valuable as well, right? To be able to identify holders, holder growth, circulating supply, allocations, vesting schedules, all of those type of things. We're just kind of making it all in one.
Nice, nice. Yeah, thank you for going in depth into that, more details on the platform and what you're building. We have about 10 minutes left. We sometimes let folks come up and ask questions. Seems like we have a really active uh, space here. So if you don't mind, we can ask some folks to come up, people from the community, and have them ask questions as well.
Yeah, great.
Awesome. Cool. So bringing up Simon and Tokyo. I'll just bring them all up, I guess. And as they come on, we'll let them ask some questions. So yeah, Tokyo, you're on. So feel free to ask your question.
So I just wanted to know how has it been after the IDO, and what plans should we expect from you? Because I'm a big supporter of Propbase.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, after the IDO, so we listed on MEXC. Um, we're now kind of at the final state. So we launched a marketing campaign which got us through IDOs called Propbase Spark. We got us through our first sex listing. Now we're kind of boosting that marketing campaign, and we're kind of going to take it to the next level here in about, thinking about, let's say late next week. So, for us, it's about accessibility. So we want to make props accessible for everyone who wants to own it. Getting on more exchanges is definitely a target of that. Rolling out our staking app, which is, honestly, I'm just so excited about it. I was sharing it with some of our team, some of our community members the other day, like designs and everything, and what it looks like from a UI UX perspective. I mean, we're just really happy with it. First in class, product development. So yeah, I think that as we one of our core focuses over the next 3 months is lined out quite clearly, in the sense that we want to make props and prop base more. We want to bring more awareness around props and prop base. We want to make the token, specifically props, our native utility token, more accessible for people who want to hold it. Either they're going to later participate in our first asset tokenization, or they want to, invest in it because they see, hey, look, we're still at, like, between the 2 to 3 million market cap. RWA has a great trend behind it. Maybe they like our leadership team. They like what we've done in the past, and they say, hey, look, there's a huge opportunity here. Our focus is very laser driven. So we're Southeast Asia. We have a narrative behind us. So our real kind of, let's say, next 90-day game plan is launching of our staking app, which is now just entering kind of test net, making sure that it's compliant, making sure that it's certified with Certic, making sure we have all the security around it. Obviously, partnering up with Pontem, being on Liquid Swap is a next step for us. More exchange listings is a next step for us. Rolling out alpha testing of our tokenization module is going to be slated here for probably the second half of December, which is in line with our near-term roadmap. Our first asset tokenization will be middle to late February, which is also in line with a lot of previous AMAs that we've disclosed. Even 4 or 5 months ago, we kind of knew exactly our timelines. And yeah, our objective is to just kind of take props to the next level, and work hard and make sure that we deliver based on what we kind of say we're going to do, and come up with our really broadcast our 2024 roadmap, because I think a lot of people know us just because we do tons of AMAs. They know what we're about, and then they know that, hey, look, how can Propbase kind of capture the narrative around RWA in Southeast Asia? And so, our objective is really just, continue to focus on execution, focus on results, more asset tokenization partnerships. So we have a very strong pipeline, and, potentially in the next 2 weeks, we'll probably have some pretty exciting news. And so, this is just kind of, part of our business. So we're building a real world business. We have a native utility token that we love, that we focus around, that we're building product and utility directly into our, core module. And, how that is, created is kind of, first in class practices. So everything we do, from tokenomics design, from utility based directly into the app, and we kind of always go back to the same things. Our tokenomics are, the supply is fixed, tokens cannot be minted or burned. Our objective and our commitment to the community is to bring more asset partnerships on board. Those asset partnerships, they should be, quote unquote, I guess you could say, sexy or exciting, or have brand value with them, so people want to buy them. Because as more users come to our platform, they are required to have props, and if they don't have so, they have to go and secure it on a DEX or on a SEX if they want to interact with the first properties we tokenize. And so indirectly, that creates value and scarcity. And so that's kind of our ethos going forward. And yeah, but we're incredibly excited. The response is, our community is growing. They're strong. We have probably what I consider to be one of the, let's say, one of the best communities in terms of they really deep dive into projects. I mean, we've got a 33-page white paper. We released early prototypes. A lot of guys who invested in our IDOs or upon listing, they're people who are really passionate about cryptocurrency. They see RWA as the biggest narrative. And so, and, we learn from them too, right? So feedback and communication is probably one of the biggest things. And I think early next week, I'm doing an AMA off of Telegram. And so, join us over there too, buddy.
Awesome, thank you. I see we have a few more folks with their hands up, so let's try to get through these next five minutes or so. So, go for it.
Hello guys, good evening. I'm the first nomad. I'm from Africa, and I wanted to ask the Propbase team about how does the Propbase do due diligence of properties they're going to tokenize, and what strategy do they have in place, like in case if a person sells the real property without telling or maybe giving a notice. Maybe like someone purchased a tokenized real estate from Thailand or maybe from France or from any other country, and then the owner of that asset sells it, the physical asset. How does that affect, or what strategy do you have to prevent such situations?
Yeah. So, I mean, that can't happen. So our process is we run through first real estate developer. We run their track record. As mentioned before, they're usually quite large. So this is a very small portion of what they're tokenizing. We do our own due diligence. And I can tell you that specifically in Southeast Asia, we have relationships going back 10 years. Um, we have third party due diligence. So in our case, top four, Deloitte, come in and make sure all the documentation is there. We have two securitization vehicles. One is located here in the region, and the other is in Luxembourg. So should there be any sort of dispute over jurisdiction or sort of where the asset is incorporated, choosing probably one of the best locations with the biggest track record. Luxembourg is a big draw for us. Specifically for investors who are not in around Southeast Asia, or maybe don't feel comfortable with Thailand. But yeah, I mean, there's not really a ability to resell the asset. That's not legally possible. There's not really an ability for us to really tokenize the wrong asset, right? So before the actual tokenization offering, we would it needs to get crowd funded, and so in order for it to be brought on chain. So this really is, the community doing their own due diligence, us providing all the information, whether it be comparables, similar type products, access to third-party platforms to double check the due diligence, to make sure all the documentation is there, to make sure the auditing stamps are there. Everything we do is kind of to make sure that that can never happen and will not happen.
Okay, my
Yeah.
last
Okay.
question is like, hello, can you guys
Yeah.
hear me?
Yeah, go for it. Just go for it. That was a good question. So you can ask another.
Okay. My last question is like, how do you tokenize the asset? Will the asset be tokenized in the form of NFTs, or will it be in the form of other aspects? Like will it be in the form of the Props token, or like, could you please a little bit explain how do you tokenize the asset? Will it be in form of NFTs that can be listed on exchanges, or will it be in some other aspect? Like, can you enlighten a little bit?
Yeah, great question. So each specific asset has its own smart contract and is specifically tokens, not NFTs.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's all I want to ask.
Awesome.
Cool.
Hey, questions?
Awesome. Yeah. I can stay on for a little bit more, and I see we have a few more questions. So, Mia, if you want to go ahead, or MIA, or really anybody can just go
Yeah, I'll
ahead
get
and
a
ask a question
question.
if they want. Yeah,
Sweet.
go for it.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. What's up, guys? Thanks for the great spaces today. I joined a little bit late, so I might have missed this, but I'm from Africa as well, South Africa. Financial access to financial services and investments and things like property, and generally quite expensive assets is very difficult. I wanted to know what you guys are doing and what procedures you're putting in place to try create the most seamless, least touch points and almost not even realize that you're using blockchain technology when interacting with your platform.
Yeah. What a great question. I mean, that's really when you get down to the product. A big focus, I'll try and sum it up quick here, but right now, hey, look, we're doing our IDOs, or we just completed our IDOs. We're talking a lot about our native utility token. This is very Web3, right? So, however, as we begin to talk about first asset tokenization, let's say early February, we're now looking at addressing traditional real estate investors, right? So these are people who might not be familiar with setting up wallets, holding private keys. They're not familiar about, specifically what is blockchain in and of itself. So we look at blockchain as a back end technology, meaning if someone wants to verify their transaction, the transaction hash is there. They can go in, they can look, they can check out the Explorer link, they can see it's successful. But most users, our front end UI UX perspective is really to be so that the user doesn't necessarily have to have the complexities to understand blockchain, to understand everything in the way that it works. That is our end goal, and so that'll probably take us around 6 months to actually really achieve it, and has to work with us in incorporating a multi-sig wallet so that the front end user really doesn't have to interact with blockchain and directly can do it from a smartphone. So, I think that's the goal for us, and really I think any RWA platform out there, and so that's the end objective, is how can we really capture that Web 2 demographic that is not familiar with blockchain, isn't familiar with interacting with the complexities around it, and to provide a seamless experience for them to do so.
Epic. I think, you nailed the answer there. Really appreciate it. And I think, that's going to be core to any real world assets project is, how do you create the most seamless onboarding user experience? Real assets are something that Web 2 people are familiar with. Blockchain isn't. So I think if, that's one of your core goals, I think you're going to have no problem onboarding the next 100 million people into blockchain. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's the amount of hours that we have spent talking about it with our technical team is key, right? So.
All right.
Epic.
Good day.
Appreciate
Am I
it, man.
audible?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, good day. Am I audible?
Yeah, go for it,
Yeah.
Mia.
Yeah, and thank you for this wonderful opportunity. Well, it's been a very informative EMS session. So I wanted to know a couple of things. I don't know. Does Propbase actually carry out any legal audit on properties before they can be listed on the marketplace? Can you walk us through the verification process and stages properties must have to undergo before they can be tokenized?
So no property will enter the Propbase platform without a third-party reputable top 4 auditor. We work directly with Deloitte. I'm not saying that every property would be audited by them. We would put it to tender. It'd be specific to that individual asset. So on Propbase, every property needs to have an audit prior to really even us considering bringing it to our investor base.
Okay. Thank you for your wonderful answers. Thank you.
Cool. Anybody else have any questions? Let's see if you folks with their hands are.
Hi, good evening.
Yeah, go for it. We can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you. Go for it.
So I have two simple questions. What plans does the community have to actually expand out of Southeast Asia, and how soon would that happen? And also, what other plans is the community making to list some of these assets on more popular secs like Binance, Bybit, BitGet, and the rest? So I just want to know about that, and how soon is it going to happen?
Yeah, great. I'll answer it shortly. There are kind of two topics. So one is our native utility token called Props. So that will list on, all the top tier exchanges here within, like, let's say the next 12 to 24 months, right? And we'll lay out a roadmap for additional exchanges. We have lots of conversations with reputable exchanges. We're very happy with our partnership with MEXC. It's a lot of work in order to really get on a centralized exchange. Then the separate topic is for our property tokens. So those list on different exchanges. We already are in conversations with partnerships specifically because one of the big challenges in a model of Propbase, not in the initial process, but is the secondary market liquidity. So if our objective is to get property tokens on other asset-backed securities exchanges rolled out just similar to as we would do our own native utility token on multiple exchanges for props. So, but great question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Lana, I see your hands raised. You want to ask a question? Cool. If not, I think we can wrap this up. This was really great engagement from the community. Really excited to see folks participating, asking really good questions here. not just, one token. So
Yeah.
yeah, really, really excited for this one. It was a great conversation. Thank you, Kevin, for coming on and sharing your project. And yeah, hopefully we'll have more of these soon.
Yeah, it's great. And we're really looking excited. I'll give a quick shout out. I met with, the whole team of Pontem, and they've been exceptionally nice for us to work with. I think about Web3, it's kind of like we want to work with, great people and people over at the Pontem and Liquid Swap. You guys are good guys, so we look forward to doing as much cooperation and partnerships, and I'm looking forward to working with you guys. Especially, you guys show a lot of thought leadership in the Aptos ecosystem, and it's really nice for us as Propbase to really be able to connect with, more people in the Aptos ecosystem, and we want to see everyone grow together and move forward together. And so, thanks for having us on.
Awesome. It's our pleasure. And thank you everyone for joining and listening, and we'll see you again soon.
Great.